How's it going? Second day in ETC. Yeah, it's been interesting times, and it's amazing to see everyone here gathering despite of the market conditions. So I'm super happy that we're here. So amazing. Yeah, so my name is Stani Kulechov, and I'm the CEO and founder of Aave. So we are a team that builds Web3 technology, mainly on Ethereum and a bunch of other chains out there. And essentially, Aave team is known for innovating in the space of decentralized finance, but going a bit back a year ago, when DeFi had its kind of like a very most peak moment and we saw a lot of innovation, one of the interesting talks last year was where Vitalik stated that it will be interesting to see more non-financial applications as well, built on the Web3 ecosystem, on Ethereum, and kind of at the same time, we were manifesting with our team that, you know, if Jack from Twitter is looking to build a financial platform on top of Ethereum, on top of Bitcoin, maybe we'll build a social media protocol on top of the Ethereum ecosystem. And at that idea, essentially 1 year ago, we started already working towards building Web3 Social. So this wasn't a bear market idea, but something that we've been working quite substantially. And today's topic is kind of like going over what we have built in terms of the protocol itself, and also the lensware and how far we have gone within the last few months. So what we're looking to actually solve when we look at the social media space, obviously, there's a lot of different things and challenges we have within the current Web2 social media landscape. Essentially, we're currently relying upon a few bigger companies to possess all the data that we have. We, as users, are creating that data. We're interacting with many of the platforms that are consisting of our networks, and we're giving data to these platforms to understand what we might like and what is our interest graphs. With this kind of like idea, it basically sets us, the users, into this idea of the users being the product. So we're actually giving more and more information to centralized social media platforms to what we actually like and what we could actually buy as well. So that's the kind of like a product aspect there of the users. And obviously, all that data that we actually give and networks that we are building, we're building into those platforms. So we can't actually take that data from one platform and create a digital exit and go to another platform which we might find more interesting. And this becomes quite a big of an issue in terms of like the portability. And this is just a few of the issues that we wanted to grasp upon with our team and trying to solve. But also there's another angle what comes from the creators. So the creators actually don't have a ability to control their distribution, but there's aspects that, for example, you might get censored, deplatformed, and this is something that happened within our community as well. Recently, for example, Bankless was censored from YouTube based on certain algorithm that was actually removing crypto channels and content out of the YouTube platform. And I was recently banned from Twitter as well for saying that I'm going to be the new interim CEO of Twitter. And obviously got back into the platform again as an interim CEO of Twitter. So that went well. But there's the deplatformation is definitely like a smaller issue, but it's part of a bigger challenge for the user and creators. So at that particular moment, I lost my whole access to my public community. And that when that happens to you, actually, you realize how much kind of like a power these bigger platforms are having. And also one of the issues that we have is that there's quite lack of monetization tools that you can use within the bigger platforms. And most of the monetization is actually based on how those networks can monetize themselves and make most out of their users. and curators. So we're all curators. We're content creators, but we curate a lot of content. So whenever you create a Spotify playlist, whenever you retweet something, you create a list of who to follow, you're actually curating content. And that is a creator asset class that is, at the moment, quite undervalued. And we're thinking like how to solve this issue of bringing the curation aspect more forward and becoming more rewarding as well. For us, with the Lens protocol, the idea wasn't just to build a protocol that will be smart contract-based social media, social graph, but actually bring the power back to the users. So we wanted to change the dynamics actually behind of how we are interacting with social media today and the dynamics there. So instead of actually having that ownership within those platforms, we wanted to bring that content ownership, the relationship ownership, and the community ownership back to the users. And going back to in time a bit, and we have all seen different slides of how the web evolved from 1 to 2 to 3, and what kind of aspects it provided. But just to give some perspective for the audience, and there's definitely always newcomers in HCC as well, is that essentially in Web 1 ecosystem, we created this kind of like an interesting way of providing knowledge and content across globally just with the internet connection. So we self-hosted a lot of servers and content and broadcasted that in a read mode, and essentially went to Web 2 where we transferred into a ecosystem where you could actually interact with that content, and you don't have to self-host to actually share what you have and your thoughts over the internet. And what was amazing with the internet in general and social media, that it really connected the peers, but let them interact with each other, and that was like actually game changer as well. So like Web 2 and Web2 Social itself, it has been progress, and Web 3 is more about now ownership. So that's the word we keep hearing all the time. When it comes to the context of social media and social graphs, one of the things that we came to us for Lens team mind is that it's not only ownership of, let's say, the networks that we create together as a community, creating public goods, but actually being able to own your social presence and your social media profile and your connections that you have. And that is something that can't be taken away from you, and you're constantly growing it for yourself. And this brings a new kind of a dynamic where you have the portability. So let's say that you create a social media profile, which is part of your identity. You don't need to leave that profile behind of you when you want to actually change the user experience and move to another application. You're constantly growing your own network. And that ownership is the key component what has been standing behind the protocol. There's a couple of things what we have been thinking of impact aspects. So we wanted to make an impact for developers, and first and foremost by lowering the barrier to create new applications. So the same way, for example, in Web3 and let's say in decentralized finance, the space is open to everyone. The code bases are open source. You can directly contribute to the code bases as a developer. You can also fork those code bases, improve them, and redeploy, or you can just take inspiration. But you have all this accessibility as a builder. And our goal here was actually build and bring the same experience into Web3, where you don't need to necessarily focus on building that big platform effect that every social media application has built over the years, but essentially creating an environment where you can actually focus on building those new experiences, new ways of interacting with the content, and you can be any part of the world building either a new social media algorithm that discovers the content that you might like more, or essentially a super exciting way of you can actually interact with existing content. And this also removes the pressure of like focusing on building that network and focusing on user acquisition. And second thing is the creators itself. So when you actually bring that power to the users and bring the power of actually to the creators to manage their own social media presence, they have more choice. So instead of being locked in a one particular platform, you actually have now the opportunity to vote with your feet and go into those applications and interact with them, which you feel the most maybe exciting, or maybe that particular experience or network or algorithms are servicing your values better. And this brings more flexibility. The protocol itself, there might be some who are very familiar of what we are building, at least the Aave team. But what we have built is essentially a protocol that is on-chain. So it's a smart contract-based protocol where you can actually create a social media profile, and this profile is an NFT. And you can publish content with the NFTs, with the profile NFTs. And you can create relationships by following other profiles. So whenever you follow another profile, that means they follow NFT, and those follow NFTs are always reflecting the latest content that the person you're following, the profile you're following, is publishing. So for example, if I publish a picture of a dog today, and I publish tomorrow a picture of a cat, those follow NFTs will reflect the latest content in whatever it's rendered, for example, OpenSea or in your wallet, and it creates kind of like this censorship-resistant communications channel between you and your audience. And one thing we added is that despite the fact that we have dynamic NFTs, we created this another concept of being able to collect the content. So every post in the Lens protocol is actually collectible in the sense that you can collect it as an immutable NFT, and the creators of those contents can actually set different kinds of prerequisites and, for example, monetization strategies where you can actually set collection fees as if you will be sharing NFTs in general. One of the things we wanted to solve is the amplification of content. So we added a feature called mirroring. And mirroring essentially means that you amplify the content of some other creator to your own audience. And by mirroring, you can also set mirror fees as a creator, so you can share the monetization. So there's a couple of things that we built already in terms of monetizations directly into the protocol. But essentially, it's just a protocol. So it's very agnostic how you can use it. You can select different kinds of modules. So what's different between Lens protocol architecture and, let's say, the Aave protocol architecture is that the Lens protocol is very modularized. Now, some of you that were in the previous talk just a moment ago, you have seen kind of like the trend going into specializing and building different parts of ecosystem and modularizing the components so they are reusable, the same way as you would reuse, for example, code today. And with this protocol, you essentially can choose what kind of modules you have, but also how you store data. So it's very agnostic and flexible in that way. So you can store data on chain, but also the protocol can reflect actually resolve the content into off-chain, for example, IPFS, into Arviv, or even self-hosting if you want to have a kind of like a peer network with your friends that you want to take down later. You can use all legacy systems like the cloud, or even store small bits of data on chain as well. So our goal was to essentially bring something for developers where they can have the base layer to innovate. And I think one of the valuable things we noticed that the value that we wanted to create is that you actually have the direct connectivity with your audience. So when you own your social media profile and your audience relationship, actually the dynamics change in a way where you have now the direct access to your audience. And it's up to the applications to actually reflect the experience and the algorithm builders to reflect how that content can be found and how valuable it can be to cross the whole social graph. But a lot of the monetization tools that we built in, which is the mirroring and the ability to collect the content as NFTs, actually are just very base layer. And we think that most of the monetization will also be built on top, either new protocols that can be related to monetization or on the algorithm or application layer. There's two kind of concepts I want to bring out as well. So the applications itself and your ability to post content means that you also have distribution. So normally you should distribute content through one application, but here you have the ability to actually post once and be distributed across the networks and the applications that really value the content of what you're creating. But another very fascinating thing that Christina from our team that is leading the growth side of the Lens protocol created this kind of like a concept of user-generated content as an asset class. So today we have different kinds of asset classes. So we all know that the old kind of like idea of Bitcoin becoming asset class and crypto and NFTs becoming an asset class. Most of the NFTs are very much art basis and they have metadata. And I think we can go even a step further of thinking that like culturally relevant and valuable, impactful content might become assets as well in the same meaning. It's already happening, but that can be extended into text-based content and also content where you interact with the original post. And I think a couple of interesting examples are memes. So we have already examples where we have different DAOs actually going retroactively, buying some of these memes from the original creators that were created a decade ago. And the same way you actually could mint and buy a meme today that might not be valuable in terms of the network effect it had received, but might actually increase the network effect over time. And this is a very fascinating area of the content part that we are excited about. So most of the things that is happening on Lens is actually not built by us, but it's built by the community. So basically the community is front-running all the developments that are happening in the ecosystem, which is absolutely amazing, and that's the way to build decentralized protocols. We have a lot of traction in terms of like how we came up with the protocol and the flexibility for developers to come and innovate on top of the protocol. We see kind of like the whole ecosystem in different layers. So as we saw the previous presentation, which was actually quite amazing, is that not only we have modules, but we also have layers that we are building today, the Web3 ecosystem. And we have the blockchain layer, we have a protocol layer where actually the Lens protocol is living, and various different kinds of modules. We might have ENS, which can be interoperable with the Lens protocol, proof of humanity, proof of attendance, and then we have this middle layer. So the middle layer is interesting where you can actually create different kinds of algorithms and serve them all the way to the experience layer. And experience layer is the one where the users are interacting. So you might access the same content through multiple front ends or the front end that you really like, but you actually might access a particular type of content from one particular front end because it's tailored towards that experience in that particular audience. And of course, like you have the audiences depending on what the application itself is. And very much a lot of things we have been building in the space has been very base layer. So there's something we build ourselves, kind of like the Lens Friends, where you can follow different kinds of profiles and you can scroll those profiles, and that could be interesting playground as well for training different machine learning algorithms in terms of like who to follow logics in the future. So we kind of like want to keep the middle layer as open as possible, so everyone can contribute their algorithms, be very transparent what kind of data they are using, and let the users to choose what algorithms they want to support. And Lenster is one cool application because it's just a very basic way to access the Lens protocol. It was built in less than 2 weeks in a one hackathon we had LF Grow together with the global team. So it's just demonstrates how quickly these applications can be built. We have also LensTube that was recently built. Why I like LensTube quite a lot is it's very basic, and it's also kind of like a demonstration of like the basic things that have been built on the Lensverse. But it uses also live peer for the rendering, and also it uses RV for data storage and Lens protocol. So it just shows how like social content creation tools and the infrastructure is very composable. And I could argue there's even more composability than what I've seen in decentralized finance. And another of my favorite is T-Party. So it uses actually cell-bound tokens to reward of different kinds of interactions, and your interactions becomes your kind of like a reputation within the application itself. So a lot of cool stuff. So we have also geolocation-based network application, and also we have Orb. So it's kind of like a LinkedIn for Web3. But essentially, we have a lot of new talent coming into the space, and it's a place to learn about different technologies that we have, and then also apply to open roles, and also educate kind of like that audience when they come into the space from the talent side. And I like this particular slide because like this is a Miguel, one of the community developers who works at Rollcoin, and Miguel is actually here. So Miguel basically builds one application a day, so we can basically give a nice. So it's quite fascinating because we kind of like somehow created a network effect where developers like Miguel has been very excited about what we built in terms of Web3 Social and how composable and usable the application is. And he decided just to go to a sprint where he took like a week or week and a half building different kinds of tools on the Lens community. And I call this like a proof of Miguel, where you have like community developers that are coming and they're super excited to build and use their free time for that. Yeah, I mentioned about the middle layer. So why it's important is that transactioning in blockchain is usually, I mean, it's essentially you pay gas for that. So we created this kind of like a API which helps to index data, build faster these experiences. And the idea is to, over time, decentralize the infrastructure and help other algorithm developers to actually inject their algorithms into the Lens API. But what's fascinating about the API is that there's also a dispatcher which actually pays for the gas for the users. And we reached 1 million gasless transactions since the launch. And this is something we built ourselves. But I'm very proud of our engineering team and Josh, who is here too, who has been leading the efforts of the Lens API to actually make it easier to build on top of Lens by having that infrastructure as well. And part of the dispatcher idea is that you can actually delegate a lot of functionality to it. So essentially, you should be able to interact with Web3 Social without actually signing MetaMask transactions, and that's why the dispatcher is very convenient. So you will be able to use something like Lenser in the future or other applications that will be built without actually kind of like feeling that it's built on top of the Web3. Yeah, so something we added into the Lens API is that it supports also resolving and finding of those Lens profile holders, their ENS addresses, proof of humanity, POAP, and also Sybil. So it's a way of actually distributing different kinds of algorithms, on-chain data across different applications who are using the Lens API. And we hope actually that this inspires other developers to build their own kind of like a middle layer infrastructure and offer to those applications and decentralizes further the middleware. And on the protocol layer, we have different kinds of direct contributors into the modules. So because the protocol is modularized, you can actually come and build new modules. So one of the modules that has been built by the communities is the token-gated, NFT-gated follow. So if you have 75 FWB tokens, one crypto coin, then you're able to follow, for example, a particular profile. And you can build in different kinds of logics on top of the smart contract infrastructure and make it very interesting and kind of like take and unleash the power of the whole Web3 ecosystem. And some interesting things is that we have also composability with DeFi, for example, where the yield is going and streamed to the creator through the Aave protocol, another interesting module. But one of the things that has been very inspirational for us is actually the Loot projects, and we kind of saw similar ways of building within the the Lens ecosystem, and that has been quite fascinating to see. And Web3 footprint is another exciting part of what we are trying to emphasize, is that we create a lot of footprint in the Web3, and that's kind of part of your identity spectrum, and that can be used in terms of like finding the content and what might be valuable for you as the user. And this is how we're kind of like seeing things evolving. And for example, when we're listing different kinds of communities to claim their handles into the closed beta of the Lens protocol, we're using this Web3 footprint. And obviously the developer community has been super excited. We've been participating a lot in different hackathons and seeing fascinating things, and we want to also kind of like push our efforts in the traditional web social space by adding the Lens reference in the different web pages. A lot of involvement will happen in the future, especially in the relayer side, where we are improving the dispatcher functionality, and the middleware, and also we're thinking about how we solve the scalability with the multi-chain and L2 approach. These are something that we're currently brainstorming within the team, and we're expecting a lot of growth in the kind of like a middleware machine learning part as well. Now that I'm running out of time, I think I could quickly show you one or two interesting slides in terms of like, so this is the amount of, we have actually revenue going directly to the users. So because the content is collectibles, there's over 200,000 worth of dollars worth of value going directly to the creators. And if you compare something like what we have achieved in a 1.5 month, and if you compare it to some other applications, social media application out there, they don't produce any revenue directly to the users that are basically interacting and creating content and as a creators. So it's been definitely an interesting journey, and this is when we started to open up a bit the release, and after 3 days we had 5,000 profiles. We went after 2 weeks to 10,000 as we started to create different kinds of use cases, how we expand the allow list. So this was the Pooley NFT, and you see that there's one particular graph. It starts to actually form there. So here's different communities we started to allow list, and you see the social graph becoming kind of like a hairball after 30 days. And this is the latest one, what we have had after 58 days, 43,000 profiles, 500,000 follow, NFTs minted, and it's still closed beta. So we're still figuring out different kind of topics like the permissionless minting of the profiles and a bunch of other interesting things. Yeah, so pretty much you could build any kind of interesting things. If you are building something or have something in mind, reach us out, me personally or our team. And obviously, I want to thank our team members that have helped me on the slides, Nicola, David, Christina, Pedro, and Antea, putting data, graphics, and everything together. And I have one interesting slide for you as well. If you didn't get, oh you guys are fast. So that's the ticket for Rave. I'm not sure how many we have in this drop, but so we're going to have a very exciting event tomorrow. If you haven't been in Rave, you should definitely be there and be here until 4 a.m. Grab our swag if you don't have it yet from our booth. And I just want to thank everyone. Do you have time for questions? Oh. no time for questions, but if you have any questions, you can find us out there somewhere or close to the booth. And thank you, everyone. Bye.